What's up? It's Way Up with Angela Yee. I'm Angela Yee, and Jasmine from the Jasmine brand is here, of course. And we have really an amazing guest, somebody who's important to me and to the show. Shontay Lundy is here.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Now, the reason I say Shontay is important to me and to the show is because you were the first ever person to say, okay, I want to work with Way Up with Angela Yee before we even launched. You know, and I do want to say I appreciate you for that. So what made you say, this is to stroke my own ego, but no, what made you say that this is something that I want to be involved in before we even started the show? You know, I'm just curious.
Sure. Black Girl Sunscreen, we believe in championing other women. So if we're just talking about Angela herself, you were somebody that, you know, highlighted Black Girl Sunscreen early on, right? Just showcasing the product. We didn't tap you to do a sponsored ad. You know, you had the product and you're like, I wear sunscreen and I want to show off this business and the product. So we took note of that years ago. Right. So when the offer came to the table, it was like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's at least entertain it before it's a hard and fast no. Right. Understanding what you did and us valuing that, but also realizing that you are serious about what you do. Right? The name that you've built for yourself and just how you have to grow. And we want to grow with someone that is growing. So with that, we said, okay, Black Girl Sunscreen is about championing and empowering other females. So why not?
Right.
So we said yes.
And that was an exciting story for me to say that Black Girl Sunscreen, like, you know, I talk about it all the time. This is my first ever, I don't know what you call it, sponsor, endorser, whatever, partnership. But to me, that's a big deal because I also care about who is supporting the show.
It was a bigger deal for us maybe because we only do partnerships that really align with Black Girl Sunscreen. Angela, people ask us for money all the time. And it's crazy because we're a growing business too, right? Like, sure, we could take the money. Black Girl Sunscreen could actually use the money. Yeah. But we say, you know what? Whatever we do, we know it's going to come back to us, right? So in order to grow, you have to invest. And that's one of the reasons why we did it. We like you as a person. We love what you're doing. We love how you represent women and partner with other women. So there it is.
You.
I heard about your product through Angela. We were on vacation. You probably don't remember this. We were on vacation. And
Where'd you go?
We were at Turks. Where were we?
Turks and Caicos? Yeah, I think we were in Turks and Caicos.
We were somewhere. And I was like, oh, I have my own sunscreen. She's like, no, try this. I was like, yeah, but I want the chalky stuff, like whatever. And she's like, no, you'll be fine. I was like, okay. So I trusted her. And then I was like, oh, okay.
Jasmine's
I like
already
this.
a little chalky, so you know.
The nerve of her. She not too many shades off. Okay. But anyway, but
yeah, we ready. Okay, should I take the blazer off?
But so yeah, that's how I found out. I was like, oh, okay, I wasn't familiar, and she kind of put me on. So
yeah. I appreciate you trying the product.
Yeah, and she loved it.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this, too, because the lesson that I learned is that sometimes people don't want to post things if they're not getting paid for it, right? Yeah. Because you see all the time, oh, you know, take this out of here. I'm not getting paid for this. But I feel like certain products, because I think it was early on, too, for Black Girl Sunscreen.
Yeah, it was.
And you know that it's a big deal for a company, because I know what it's like to be a small business owner and to not really have the capital, because we're all trying to get investors, you know what I'm saying? And to not really have the capital to pay people to do certain things. And so for me, because you know me, before I do something, I'm going to do a little research. Because what if it was Black Girl Sunscreen, but it was owned by somebody white or something like that?
Right.
I mean, it's possible, and people still try to claim
that,
you know, Black Girl Sunscreen was founded by somebody not of color.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And listen, so I was like, let me, you know, see what it is. And so I saw that it was a newer company. And I was like, I felt like me posting it was also, but it was a great product. And I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't. But my point is, if you like something and you want to support it, give a post.
Right.
You know, and it really does go a long way. And people appreciate it. And it's also you giving your audience or whoever follows you, like, good advice to say, hey, you should try this.
You know, but it goes further than that, right? Like you told your homegirl. Right. In that respect, this is my homegirl. I'm gonna put her on. Right. So we really value the referrals.
Right.
Because that's how we grow stronger. And honestly, if it wasn't because of all the aunties that are telling their nieces and vice versa, friends telling friends, people buying for their whole entire department for a gift bag.
Yes.
Black Girl Sunscreen wouldn't be where we are today.
Right.
Because the numbers add up, and everybody, you know, they don't feel like posting, and we're okay with that. You have an audience, you have a voice, so it was very helpful for us during that time. It's helpful for us now, right?
Let me ask you this, Shontay, on some real
Sure.
Do people have a problem with you using the word black girl? Because I also notice that sometimes people shy away, like, oh, we don't want to put it in a box. Sometimes people feel like, well, you shouldn't let people know you're a black-owned business just because you don't want to make it seem like other people can't use it. Did you ever have any pushback on that? Or do people sometimes come at you online like, oh, so white people can't use this?
Yes. And it's a loaded yes, because it's something that we still have to face today. In 2016, when I created it, it was never, ever a second thought of if the name should be Black Girl Sunscreen, because that's how I felt in my heart. I wanted the space to understand that it was for black women, and my vernacular has changed over time. So the product is for black women, and it's sunscreen, period. There's no guessing. There's no guesswork in it. So you walk down the aisle, you're looking for a sunscreen. Okay, this is for me because it said it's for me.
Right.
Now, as we grow, the vernacular has changed to women of color and then people of color, because we see that so many others are taking to the brand.
Right.
People are really enjoying the product. It says what it does. It does what it says it's supposed to do, meaning rub in with no white cast. So with that, if somebody that has less melanated skin is like, hey, can I wear the product? It's like, of course. It's moisturizing and hydrating. Why can't you use it? We're just talking to women and people that have been ignored in the industry for decades.
Right.
Yeah.
So listen, there are business out here that shy away from identifying exactly who they are and who they want to talk to. Why?
Right.
I can name festivals right now that speak to exactly who they want to come to their festivals.
Right.
And there's no pushback, right?
right.
But when it's black people, there's pushback.
Right.
And I think the other part of the story is people have been told, well, if you have melanin, you don't need sunblock.
Right.
And it's important to know that, yes, you still do need at least an SPF 30.
Yes. So when I was coming up, we didn't use the word sunscreen at all. We didn't have the product in the house at all. So I was very unfamiliar, as opposed to, okay, growing up with it, going to camp, and my mother putting sunscreen on me like my lighter skin counterparts.
Right.
So it's a different environment. So if you are taught not to wear sunscreen, that's just what it is. Until maybe you go to the dermatologist and they recommend it. But what if you go to the dermatologist and they're not recommending sunscreen because they're not educated on ethnic skin?
Right.
So there's different levels to why we're not wearing sunscreen. A, from our environment, B, from lack of professional education, and then C, from a big brand perspective. Larger brands aren't speaking to us.
Right.
So on so many different levels, we're not even exposed to it.
And one thing that's important to me, too, is what's in my product, right? Okay. Because, we also want to make sure that we're not using products that have ingredients that could be harmful to us in it. So when you came up with how you were going to make this product, can you talk about that process?
Yeah, so we were really progressive. We were before our time. And one of the ingredients that I wanted to eliminate was oxybenzone because it had an effect on coral reef. This was in 2016. And when I was talking to my chemist about it, he was like, no, I've been doing this for 20 years. We're going to keep it in there. And I'm like, no, I'm producing this, so we're going to take it out. Fast forward 3-4 years, the industry banned it. So you can't use any sunscreen product that has oxybenzone in Hawaii, in the Keys, and other spaces, other beach big spaces are taking out oxybenzone because it is harmful. So if we did not remove oxybenzone in 2016, we would have had to reformulate.
Wow.
So even being
That's expensive to do, by the way.
It is. So even being in big box retailer, they've regulated that ingredient. So if you're a sunscreen, you can't have that ingredient in your product. So let's say you're like, hey, I don't care. I'm a D2C company, direct to consumer, and my customer is not in Hawaii or is not in the Keys. I'm not going to reformulate. If you're in the big box retailer, you do have to reformulate. Right. Yeah. So it was a costly decision that I didn't even know. I was super green coming in, right? And I think that blind ambition is great.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't know what pitfalls, you don't know what challenges you're going to come across. You're just like, I got this idea and I'm going to execute it. Yeah. Yes.
But calculated blind ambition, because you still got to do the research.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
How did you know this was harmful? And two, can you briefly kind of explain your background, what you did before you got into this business?
Yeah. Just Google. Okay. Just a lot of
deep dives. That's what I do.
Super deep dives, like hours of research, right? And what's going to be hydrating, what's going to be the number one reason why people of color are not wearing sunscreen is because of the white cast. Okay, so how do we eliminate that? Right. So pre-2016, like legit, we were just wearing what was sold to us.
Right.
And that's why we wouldn't wear it, because like I don't want to look crazy.
Yeah, I don't want to.
So why do I have to take what you're giving me? Yeah. I'm cool, right? I'm cool. So my background, not chemistry. I have an undergrad degree in business. I have my MBA, and I was enrolled.
Okay, hold on, talk to him. Let him know.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and I was enrolled into a PhD program for organizational behavior, and I had to exit because I was doing Black Girl Sunscreen, and I had to figure out, what was the appropriate thing to do, juggling a full-time job, overseeing a up-and-coming business, and being enrolled into this really high intense research program. And I said, okay, education will always be there, so I'll just circle back to the PhD.
Something
degree.
Good to fall back on.
Yeah,
if you want to.
And but honestly, the ingredients is a story for us, because even though we're starting with the baseline consumer, because we're changing the narrative around sun safety within a group that may have been exposed to it or not.
Right.
So we wanted to start very kind of simplistic, so everybody understood, hey, at least I should be wearing sunscreen. Let's start to open up their minds, as opposed to, okay, we have this, and this. We didn't want to be so ingredient heavy, because we have to start from scratch.
Yeah. Now, I've had people tell me we don't need sunscreen. We have. Yeah, and I'm always like, nah, I'm not trying to get skin cancer.
When did you start wearing sunscreen or sunblocker?
Probably, I didn't wear it when I was a kid.
Me neither.
Yeah, at all.
Yeah.
So, probably after I got burnt.
That's what what happened to me. Like in high
As
school.
you get burned one time, you're like, hold on,
Listen,
maybe this is.
I was in high school, and it was only a few black cheerleaders. Everybody else was white. They all would wear sunscreen, sunblock, or whatever, and I didn't, because no one had ever told me to, and I got really burnt. And I said to my mom, like, why you didn't tell me? My mom is brown. She's like, well, I didn't know. I'm brown, so I just thought maybe you wouldn't have that problem. And my mother really didn't know.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of new for black and brown
As a matter of
people.
fact, sometimes we put oil on and stuff like that to try
coconut
to get
oil,
do,
baby oil, but give me a J.
Give
me an L, right? I was a cheerleader too. Were you?
No.
She played sports.
basketball.
Yeah, she played
and I
ball.
ran track and
Same here.
Now tell me about this, because again, Shontay Lundy is here, founder of Black Girl Sunscreen. You're from Newburgh, New York.
Yes.
So talk to me about Newburgh for anybody who's never been
got
to
an
Newburgh.
845 number in here?
Where's that?
Who got an 845? Okay, Dan got an 845 number.
Our producer.
So Newburgh is
Newburgh?
It's right up,
Is that how they say it?
Newburgh. You gotta do it like that, but you can only do it if you're from Newburgh.
Okay, I won't try.
So it's an hour and a half up the street. It's not far at all. So from Harlem, hour and a half. If you're booking it, you can take the train right up to
so it's up.
Beacon. Yeah, it's north.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us about growing up in Newburgh.
Newburgh is crazy, son. It brings a smile to my face, because Newburgh is a town that if you actually want to do something, you gotta leave.
Okay.
But you're never gonna forget that you are from Newburgh. So I grew up in Newburgh in the early 80s. I know it doesn't look like it, but early 80s.
Sunscreen. That's why y'all use sunscreen.
Yeah, in the early 80s, it was a crack epidemic, and just a black hole, right? So it's a small city, and even if you want to have a decent job, you got to commute to the city.
Yeah. Right?
Because there were no big businesses in Newburgh. Unless you were in education, so maybe like a teacher or something, you were probably making a decent living. So growing up in Newburgh, there are parts that are really black and that are really not black. And so, but if you did good in sports, you would want to go to the black school, right? Because that's where you were kind of like challenged and people were looking at their high school. So like NFA gets a lot of attention for football, for track and field. If you wanted like a decent house and feel safe, you lived in the suburbs. So like New Windsor, you would even go to like a Walden or Montgomery, Middletown. So those are outside of Newburgh because it's dangerous. I'm hesitant because you don't want to speak down on
but you really grew up there, so you can.
Yeah. So at one point it was the murder capital of the United States, because that's what it is. But But I graduated from Valley Central, which is 15 minutes out of Newburgh. So I didn't graduate from NFA, and that's because my parents decided to move from Newburgh. And that was to get away of just the toxicness, right? So literally you could have, prostitution like right here on the corner.
Sheesh.
Oh yeah, it's serious. But now what's happening is people are moving out from outside of the city because the homes are more affordable, and so there's gentrification happening along the river. But if you go down Broadway is one of the main streets in Newburgh. There's something called like the Hudson kind of like area where there's just restaurants and clubs, and it's pretty because it's on the river. So I talk about Newburgh because I'm deeply rooted. It's in me, right? Like you can't take it out of me. And it wasn't that it was a struggle, but I seen the struggle. So I might not have struggled, but I've seen it. I've seen it around me, and I don't take that for granted. And it was hard. It was hard coming from humble beginnings. And I appreciate people that have also experienced just having to figure out, getting resources or not having a fresh outfit on the first day of school.
Right.
Because that was a thing too. What are you going to wear on the first day?
You didn't want to get made fun of because of your sneakers,
your sneakers,
clothes,
and everything, right? Like, so sunscreen, like my family couldn't afford sunscreen. Like we would just buy lotion.
Right. Yeah.
And that was it. We're talking about like just basic essentials. So talk about really, really humble beginnings there. So that's the part of me that I don't necessarily share all the time, because I am becoming more comfortable now. But, ask me 10 years ago, I wouldn't necessarily share the humble beginnings. I talk about Newburgh, but if you knew Newburgh, then you would understand humble beginnings, if you will.
So how was it for you having to have these conversations like Walgreens, right? The partnership that you have with Walgreens.
Yeah.
I want you to discuss, you talk about coming from humble beginnings, but then you have your MBA, and we talk about this PhD program. And this wasn't necessarily like you're not a chemist, so your background wasn't in, necessarily developing ththese products from that standpoint, but then being comfortable, because I feel like even for myself, you have this little bit of an imposter syndrome sometimes when you're like, man, because I have my coffee company and I have to have these conversations, and it is a learning curve too. And so when you first got into was Walgreens the first as far?
Target.
Oh, Target was first. Okay. So what was that like when you had that first conversation and finding out that you would be in Target? Because I've heard this, right? I'm about to be in Target too, by the way, for Coffee Uplift people.
Congratulations.
Yep.
So anyway,
I know you're excited.
But I had somebody tell me one time it's not always what it's cracked up to be, and there are some pitfalls that can happen. So for you, getting into Target, talk about that process and how it even happened.
It happened because I'm not gonna say we made it happen, but we kind of made it happen. And the reason why I say that is because if you look up certain words, keywords on the internet, you are not escaping Black Girl Sunscreen. It's just not happening. Because it's important that your Google visibility is strong, especially in this type of environment. So literally, I was in Chicago. And I got a call saying like, "Hey, this is such and such from Target, and we want to know if you want to be in the store."
Damn.
Straight up. So I put him on mute, and I just started crying.
Oh,
I started crying. Got myself together. Took like 2 seconds, and I was like, "Okay, so what do we need to do next?" It was like a Friday evening, and he was like, "Okay, so we're gonna get something on the calendar, and then we're gonna have a conversation."
That's amazing. So it wasn't that you were like pitching to them.
Nope. So Black Girl Sunscreen has never pitched to a retailer.
Sheesh.
Oh, interesting.
And we're in 12,000 stores. So I say that because we've done something that retailers want, and that's having new guests come to their stores. So what I mean by like not having to go out and pitch is typically they've come to us like, "Hey, we've seen you over here," or "Hey, we love your product," or "Hey, it was referred by this person. Let's have the conversation." So our growth has been happening organically.
Right.
Whereas some other people do have to figure out who the buyer is and land those conversations. And for us, we've been I don't want to say lucky because there's nothing about luck what we're doing. We've been working really hard.
Right.
I mean, our team is solid.
You've been recognized for the work that you put in and for having a product that is also fundamentally amazing, because if it wasn't, none of this works.
Yeah.
Right? You can get into a store, but can you stay in a store?
Let's talk about velocity. So, we had the call, and the first year negotiations is, what's the best word? I would say not stressful, intense. There you go. Right? Because you want the relationship to be equitable.
Right.
And not just a Target, but big box retailers will strong arm you.
Yeah. They want to make money as much as they can,
Yeah,
but you also
yeah.
have to make sure you're not cutting yourself short.
Well, that you could handle it, right? Because if, let's just say, I don't know, the breakdown is 60-40, is that something that you can do?
Right.
That's 40% that you like, well, hold on, I just spent 100% on the product.
Right.
So why am I only going to get 40% from this transaction?
Right.
That shit doesn't make
Some
sense
people-
to me, right? Like if you actually do the math and your product can be discounted, it could be charged back, it could be defective.
Because
There's
if
a
it's
lot
in the
that's
store and it
happening.
doesn't sell, then
So because we're growing, we're not having that issue, right?
Right.
So that conversation, honestly, like it's hard for me to even think about because I'm always, my mind is always like, how do we increase sales? How do we increase the door count? How do we build stronger relationships with the buyer, right? So they're plugging us in this advertisement and in this this marketing ploy. Like there's just different ways that you enhance your partnership
even
beyond the
placement
buyer.
in the store. Like when I
Oh,
walk
my
in,
goodness.
is there...
Black Girl Sunscreen is always eye level. Always. There's no stores that we on the bottom or on the top.
Right. You don't
And
want to be
that's-
the dusty
Is that,
bottom
where,
shelf.
is that per your request, or is that the store's request, or is that who sells the most gets that?
the latter.
Okay.
So if you're selling through, they're gonna put you where the consumer is gonna see you,
Right.
right?
Okay.
But then they also see how hard the brand is going.
Right.
Right. I mean, you could go on all of our socials and see that we're shouting out our retailers, right? We literally have a content schedule when we're talking about each relationship. So the velocity, meaning the sell through, is important. So if you selling, I don't know, X amount of units per week, they're like, okay, this is a brand that's doing well. We want to highlight them. We want to showcase them in the best way to move their product. So the longer you're in the store, the more market share you have in the store.
Oh, okay.
So if you're in the store, whatever, 4 years, right, you have to account for either, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5% of their business in that category.
Okay.
Right. So like if
Okay.
you got coffee, let's just say coffee, and we're going to take it 100% market just in coffee. Okay. You in there, you killing the game. 3 years in, you should probably have about 3 to 5% of just that
category.
market
Okay.
in that category. So then you become valuable to the retailer. Right, because you're not like 0.5% of that business, their
Right.
P&L. You are 5% of that P&L.
Okay. Got it. See, this is important because there's
Yeah.
a lot of people who are like, I just want to get in stores, but they don't understand once you get in there,
Right.
you
What
do you
do
do?
have to become valuable because you can't just get in and then be like, okay, I did my job.
What's the hardest part about being in the store?
Oh, not knowing who our customer is.
But
Right?
you know who your customer is.
No, we don't know it's you, right?
Okay.
Because we don't have an email address. We don't have any way to talk to
But
you.
you know, black girls shop at Target.
Yes,
But
we
it also depends on which Target you're at.
Yes, because I don't go
you
to
have
every Target. I go to
yeah,
Target.
there's certain neighborhoods that, you
Okay.
know, maybe.
So for me, where I'm like, man, I wish we had a little bit more eyes on this. Is understanding what she likes, where she goes, who she is, and the big box retailers. That's their customers.
Yeah.
That ain't our customers.
Right.
So that's the issue that I have is
Okay.
can we share email lists?
Right.
I know that would never happen.
Is that something you
but-
can negotiate? No.
No.
Okay.
Hell no,
No.
that'd be-
No,
be
so
expensive.
customers' data, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what every business wants is the customer's data. So I'm just like, okay, like I know we're retaining the customer at the big box retailer because we're growing, but how do we make sure that we're really speaking to that guest, to
Now-
that customer?
Do you make more online than you do, like direct to consumer, than you do in stores? Because that's another thing too.
You a
Because
VC
obviously
on the
the-
low? You a VC on the low?
Well, I'm just asking. You know, these are all questions.
I love him. I love him.
Because obviously you're going to get more per sale if
Yeah.
it's direct to consumer.
So, the advantage of going into in-store is that they have the reach that a Black Girl Sunscreen won't have. I mean, our socials are probably about 200,000. I mean, they get a lot of eyes, whether it's the Walmarts, Walgreens, CVS, whatever it is. So, it is a, what's the word I want to use?
It's a give and take kind of like a
Not necessarily a give and
catch-22?
take. But no, she was asking me what's the spread. So I can't necessarily say exactly.
No,
It's
it's
just
just
you know what it is? It's the marketing of being able to be there and have brand recognition too, and that could bring that brings more eyes, like you said.
Once you start to scale, it's gonna cannibalize your .com.
Right.
Like period.
Okay.
So what we do at Black Girl Sunscreen is we have all of our new product launches go to our .com first.
Okay.
All of our seasonal items go to our .com first, right?
Okay.
Because that's how we're bringing that consumer to what we're doing, as opposed to like whatever the big box retailer. We want them to know that this is exclusive. You can only buy our merch on blackgirlsunscreen.com.
Yeah.
You can only buy our Make It Spice product on blackgirlsunscreen.com. We have
Mugs, by the way.
mugs,
You can
yeah,
get mugs on
okay.
sale right now.
we did a Make It Spice, not Make It Spice, Make It Pop.
What's that?
Our newest launch is for it's sunglass, so we cross categories.
Okay.
And that's a big deal for us.
Yes, it is. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So that we launched that on the website. You can't
Get that anywhere else. What's
No.
the busiest month for you in terms of sales? Like is it
July.
summer, spring? Okay.
July.
Yeah, it makes
We're actually
sense.
going into sunscreen season right now. So
Okay.
We can't wait for that,
April
by the way, because I need a
through,
vacation.
Girl. Yeah.
Now, one more thing
Yeah.
that I want to ask you, and this is going to be a hard question.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So, a lot of times, and we've seen this happen with other products, right? It starts off as black owned, and then at
I
some
know
point,
where you're going with this, Angela.
yes, people are like, okay, it's time for me to sell this business, cash out, and invest in something else. And I'm not asking you right now if that's what your intention is, because that's a hard thing. You never know. You know, people's circumstances change. It could be something else that you want to do, that you want to invest in, right? But can you talk to people about that? You know, just even making a decision about your company, because this is your baby, right? Is that something that you... I mean, I feel like this. Nobody plans to do something forever, and unless
Well,
you
some
are
people
planning
do.
to,
Some people do.
unless you are planning to do this forever, but that's a lot. That's and you also never know if your circumstances will change. So when you were building this, was this something that you took into consideration? Because I always feel like it's something you think about. Like, what would be my number if somebody offered, me some money for my product?
Black Girl Sunscreen was started with one product and one person, and now we're a team of 20 in 12,000 stores. I never ever thought that this would be possible, to have the conversation of not only raising money but selling the business. So some decisions I'm making as I go, and what feels great. I follow my tuition in every decision that I make. So typically, when a business takes outside funding, it is either to go public or to sell.
Okay.
So with that, something has to happen, right? Or some people are going to be mad, right?
Yeah.
Or we got to pay them back. I think that Black businesses, we should aspire to get more sold, right? There's been a lot of movement in the hair care space, which has been phenomenal. We have the food industry really dominating. We have beauty, coming in really strong. So, what is important to me is that we are showing women or like just coming up that it's possible. Brands are getting bought and sold left and right. We can do it too.
Right.
If Black Girl Sunscreen ends up that way,
She's okay with that.
It's a gift and a curse, because people love you so much when you start something yourself, but then sometimes they don't want to let you go.
Because we have an emotional attachment,
Yeah,
I feel like.
I think that's
to
part
this.
of it.
Oh, it's a connection to her.
But to
So-
understand business
Yep.
more, I think, is important, because
Yep.
now we're in a space where we can.
interesting that you
that.
say that. So I had a TikTok account started for me. And on the first post, it was, don't sell Black Girl Sunscreen, don't sell out. And when I hear a comment
That is not
like
selling
that,
out.
it's not selling out, but it's also just from a general consumer's knowledge, which I don't think is the knowledge of how business is actually held and worked. So we're here.
Right.
We're here.
You're
We're here.
gonna
We're
make
just
whatever
starting.
decision is best.
We're just starting
when
to
you-
scratch the surface
Right.
of growing and growth, and really listening to who our consumer is and what their needs are. So I can't say what we're gonna do.
Right.
Okay.
Good answer.
Yeah.
And how was it raising funds? Because that's not easy either.
It's still hard to this day, right? I feel like because of the complexion of my skin and my gender, I'm having to come in with more data than anybody. More data and more of, okay, I know how to manage money. I'm responsible. Listen to that. I'm responsible. I'm seeing my lighter skin peers getting higher valuations on their company.
Right.
Giving less of their business up.
Yeah.
And getting more money.
And that is not just a myth, that is a fact.
It is.
Like when you look at the statistics and the numbers, women get less money, right? And black women get less than less. And so that is just what it has been typically. And we've had to turn to other routes. You self-funded in the beginning to get your product off the ground, and you've been able to raise money. But, and like you said, it's still tough.
Yeah.
How did you learn how to raise capital?
Google. And being part of a couple of communities where they would look over the decks that I created.
Okay.
I also have a really strong financial team.
Right.
So your books have to be together in order to talk to someone about getting money. And that, and that's the thing too. You're like, how hard was it? I know some people that didn't have their financials together.
Yeah.
But happened to get a couple $1 million. You're like, wow,
the relationships
right?
based
Yeah,
on
literally. So I would say that, right now, investors are investing in the founder. Right.
Yeah.
So what's that work ethic of the founder, and what do they value, and how do they hold themselves in the public eye? And then is your product mass? Does it have potential to be mass? And then what's the plan?
All right. Well, listen, I love it. And I appreciate you for being so open and honest about everything.
Yeah. You're welcome.
She's like, who? Because she came in here like, I'm just ready to have a conversation. Ask me anything you want. And I, that's valuable to me because you know your shit. So
thank you. It also is more of how much you want to share, right? Because we could get deep down, dirty. We could keep it light and bright.
Right.
Right. Do you want the true? Right. And that's the question. And that's why I just shared so much. Kind of right there.
We appreciate that.
Yeah,
no, because I know there's a lot of people who have businesses or who want to start a business, or maybe people who are watching what you're doing and want to know how you got to where you are, not just on the light. Like, I'm Shontay Lundy from Newburgh, and I have this product, I came up with it, and it's in Target and Walgreens and expanding. It's more than that, and there's so much that goes into what it is that you do. Was there ever a time when you felt like it wasn't going to work and you were like, because being an entrepreneur, and I know this myself, there's times that you could just cry.
Yeah, I cry because I get $1 million POs. And that's a flex. We're going to snap to that. We got to snap to that. I don't cry because I never thought it was going to work, because that's not my mentality.
Right.
I'm not doing nothing that's not going to work. I go hard every single day for Black Girl Sunscreen. Every single day. So it's no luck. It's the work ethic, the ideas, and I have a very, very talented team. I mean, we have 3 of them right here.
Yeah,
and
they
lit.
And they pretty.
Listen,
they're gorgeous.
The team is so lit though. Like seriously, because I come with the bigger ideas, they execute.
Yeah.
Right. They come in and fine comb with a fine tooth comb, and really enhance the vision. So I never ever thought that Black Girl Sunscreen wasn't going to work. I am nervous though of how big we actually can grow.
Okay.
That's what I'm nervous about.
That's what she said. No, okay.
Right? I am nervous about. I am nervous about that because, when we started whatever 3, 5, 10, it's at 20, right? We're talking about individuals here. We can keep going, right? And so it's twofold. It's having great products, but then actually running a business.
Yeah, it is.
Right? And then having executives around you.
Yeah.
Right? So we talking about a whole other level of running a business. We don't consider ourselves a small business. We consider ourselves a growing business.
How long did it take for you guys to turn a profit?
Black Girl Sunscreen's been profitable since day one.
Since day one.
Oh, wow.
Since day one.
You rarely ever hear that.
That's been a goal of mine very early on. And now seeing investments, people want to invest in profitability. Because if you're not profitable, then where are you spending your money? How are you spending your money? What are you thinking about? So there are things that, and so also we talk about being, one of your first sponsors. Like, we have to think about where we spend our money. It's very, very intentional.
Right.
So we're not just with a fire hose spinning, right? We're thinking about what makes sense, in terms of short term and then longevity.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And that's how we are profitable, having great margins with the products, right? So how you construct it. Okay, so understanding what's the price point when you go into the market, how competitive you want to be, okay, And then how do you sell? What actually is a priority? So is inventory a priority, or having, I don't know, something really nice like in the office? Like sometimes you got to make decisions.
Right.
How many years have you been in business?
6.
What's been your toughest year to date, and what was going on? You haven't had any
She
tough
said
years?
day one we've been profitable.
Yeah, I know. But I'm sure there've been other challenges. Like I'm sure it hasn't all been a.
And does it affect your personal life because you work a lot?
Last year was hard. Last year was hard because we're in growth mode. So when you go from whatever 5 to 10 people, it's understanding different personalities, right? How to motivate, how to incentivize, how to get the best out of others.
Right. Sometimes you got to let people go. That's hard too.
Yeah.
It's hard for me.
Have you had to fire anyone yet?
I would think so.
I would think so too.
6 years.
So we actually use the word transition. Right?
Have you ever had to transition someone off the team?
So what that means is, right, we keep it kind of, we don't say if we're letting someone go or if they decided to resign because of the integrity of it. But listen, how I see it is, not every relationship works.
Yeah,
that's a fact.
Right? Whether it's a friendship, a romantic ship, or a professional.
Not a romantic ship. I love that word.
Yeah, or a professional. It's a ship.
It
right?
is.
So with that being said, some people come into your life for a season and a reason, right? And as long as they have an impact on Black
or a
Girl
lifetime,
Sunscreen,
don't forget that.
Or a lifetime, I love that, right? So if they come in, we just want them to make an impact on Black Girl Sunscreen, and we want to make an impact on them. So naturally, people will, as you grow as a tree, leaves shake off.
Okay, now.
So yes,
shake
got
it
it.
off.
Okay.
And listen, how has it affected your personal life? Because you're working a lot,
Yeah.
growing your business,
Yeah.
like you said, a successful business. But I'm sure sometimes, and I know this from my own self, certain times you got to prioritize. And is that hard in your personal life?
Black Girl Sunscreen keeps me young. I'm in the know of what's trending, what's
Right.
not trending. No, honestly, right? I think it's very valuable to me because I think just having information is important for our personal growth. So from that perspective, it's keeping me young. Now, from a work perspective, sometimes I get vertigo.
Okay.
Right. So from traveling, I get super dizzy if I'm not well rested. But the awful thing about it is I work through it. Right.
Okay.
And really, I should get rest.
Right.
But I'm like, hey, this conversation is actually important. I know this person has been on the calendar for a month. I don't want to cancel. And I hate saying I can't do something after I've already committed to doing
Me
something.
too. I'm the same
So-
way. I'm like, I have to go.
Yeah, I gotta go. Let
And
me just
sometimes
show
you're like, I
face.
should have just said no. And saying no
Facts.
is a powerful thing for
Facts.
yourself.
Yep.
But if you and I are having a conversation, you're like, hey, can you come to this event? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then you follow up with the invite. I'm like, oh, she was serious.
Yeah, I really
right.
gotta go.
So like, I gotta go, and I don't because I wouldn't want it done to me.
Right.
So that's how Black Girl Sunscreen has affected me in a not so great way. Is just not really getting the proper rest all the time. But I know at 45 I might be able to chill for a lifetime. So that's how I'm looking at it. Really, like, in the future, it's like these doctors that dedicate 14 years of their life to then do what they really want to do.
I feel like we all need a vacation to do some marketing for Black Girl Sunscreen and use the product.
Yep.
The team would
Let's
love
do
it.
it.
The
Let's
team
do
would
it.
love
That's
it.
work.
Yes, that's work. And that's the thing too, right? Even when you're on, when you think you're taking a break, you're actually still working.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm driving down the road. I'm looking at billboards all day to really understand what they're saying to the consumer. Excuse me, how do we convey a similar message, right? Where are they placed? And I'm just driving into work, and that's where my mental is.
can't turn it off.
I can't turn it off
Yeah.
because this is something that's important to me. And the work that we're doing, Black Girl Sunscreen, we don't just sell sunscreen. This is coming from me. This is in my heart. Our work has resonated, and I know that we have changed the space. I know the work that the ladies are doing is impactful. So from growing the business to speaking to a market that has never been spoken to, and giving other companies the confidence and enabling them to make products for other Black people for sunscreen is crazy.
Yeah.
Black Girl Sunscreen is not the only one doing it now. We're an
Yeah,
option.
No, I saw.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's great. And I will say, because when you guys first came out, it was the only one I had seen like it. And that's actually what made me gravitate to it.
Right.
I don't think I had seen anything either at the time.
So we use the vernacular, hey, don't be ashy. But now you see big brands talking about ashy. But when did you start using the word ashy? I'm confused.
You're
but you know
inspiring.
what?
That's all.
Right,
Shout out
okay.
to Ashley Larry.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, our work is really impactful, and that is why I'm here. I really feel like I was put on this planet to do this.
Yeah. Other than that, there's also an education component to it. You know, knowing about your skin is an important thing. So we appreciate you so much. And thank you for coming, because I know your schedule is packed, but I wanted to make sure we got this done.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for having me.
I already have plans for us, so you know.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, Shontay
Ready.
Lundy, Black Girl Sunscreen founder on Way Up with Angela Yee.